Welcome to Season 4, Episode 27 of the Jordan B.Peterson podcast. I'm Michaela Peterson. This episode features Rex Murphy in discussion with Jordan Peterson. Rex Murphy is a Canadian commentator and author who deals primarily with Canadian politics and social matters. He's best known for working on and for CBC Here and Now, CBC Radio 1's Cross Country Checkup, writing for the Globe and Mail, and writing for the National Post. He's extremely sarcastic and entertaining. He's very well recognized and a loved figure. Rex Murphy and my dad discussed Rex's impressive career, Canadian politics, Western culture, the woke culture wars, changes in universities, the crumbling study of the humanities, and more. This episode is sponsored by Relief Band. Check out reliefband.com. You may be living in places where it's getting warmer, and because your areas have been reopening, hopefully, you're going to finally be able to start doing things with your friends and families, swimming, camping, water parks, maybe even amusement parks. Nausea in any one of those circumstances will ruin your fun. It ruins everything. Our producer recently used it while flying. It's all natural, and you just use it as a wearable device. No sedating anti-nausea meds necessary. So for those of you who worry about nausea, I have good news. It's called Relief Band, reliefband.com. How it works is Relief Band stimulates a nerve in the wrist that travels to the part of the brain that controls nausea. Then it blocks the signal your brain is sending to your stomach, telling you that you're sick or nauseous. Relief Band's the only over-the-counter wearable device that's been used in hospitals and oncology clinics to treat nausea and vomiting. Relief Band is the #1 FDA-cleared anti-nausea wristband that has been clinically proven to quickly relieve and effectively prevent nausea and vomiting associated with motion sickness, anxiety, migraines, hangovers, morning sickness, chemotherapy, and more. If you know someone who's suffering from nausea or going through chemo or morning sickness, Relief Band can make a great gift. People don't know about it. It's really useful. The product is 100% drug-free, non-drowsy, and provides all-natural relief with 0 side effects for as long as needed. Right now, Relief Band has an exclusive offer just for Jordan B. Peterson listeners. You go to reliefband.com and use promo code JBP. You'll receive 20% off plus free shipping and a no questions asked 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to reliefband.com, reliefband.com, and use our promo code JBP for 20% off plus free shipping. Hopefully this helps people who are suffering from nausea.
Hello, everyone. It's my great pleasure to introduce all of you to Mr. Rex Murphy, who's my guest today. Rex is a Canadian commentator and author who deals primarily with Canadian political and social matters. He began his lengthy career as the main interviewer and commentator for Here and Now, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's nightly TV news program in the province of Newfoundland. He was the regular host of CBC Radio 1's Cross Country Checkup, for a good while, the only nationwide call-in show in Canada, and one that was avidly listened to across the country, for 21 years before stepping down in September 2015. He has been a columnist for 2 of Canada's most influential newspapers. First, he wrote a weekly Saturday column in the Globe and Mail for most of the first decade of the century, and is currently writing an influential column 3 times weekly for the National Post. All the newspaper readers in Canada look forward to those columns. Mr. Murphy is one of Canada's most well-known figures. He writes and speaks with a witty, intense, informed, acerbic style. His capacity to lampoon, satirize, and think critically makes him the bane of unprepared politicians and other public figures across the country. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to me, Rex.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. And before we get into any of the chat, let me say on Zoom what I said in private. It's very good to see you back. And I know I'm giving words to about 20,000 times 20,000 other people when I say that.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And I'm very pleased to be able to be doing this again. It's it's increasingly a treat to do.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that. I'll spoil your treat, though. You picked the wrong person for a treat. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on your taste, eh?
Yeah, I suppose.
So I thought we might start by walking through your professional career, your life for that matter. You were born on the East Coast.
Yeah, I was born on the East Coast by the Newfoundland stand, a fairly large town. It's called Carbonear. My father worked on the American base, which was one of the 5 in Newfoundland that Winston Churchill kind of traded to the Americans. You remember the lease for ships? He worked there from the very beginning in 1941. We moved closer to that place. I mention this for a reason. When I was about 10, to a much smaller town, but because I was adjacent to the base, I had some American influence even as a kid in Newfoundland in the 50s. And that precipitated, after I finally finished walking around universities, I actually taught American students 1 to 12 in the Naval Station School. And I spent a whole year there, back and forth, drawing up curriculum and teaching Canadian studies, believe it or not, to American kids. It was an experience that, for the last 10 or 15 years, when American politics has become so dominant, that little visitation to the Argentia School has proved, I won't say useful, but it gives me a deeper context, I think.
So where did you go to university and what did you study?
I went to university 2 places. I went to Memorial University. I stayed there for 5 years. I studied English literature, and I was blessed. If you want to talk to what I am pleased to call my life, I think a cardinal experience, and I'm not just saying it, is that the English department at the time at Memorial University, the university was quite small then, 3,000 people, and by the time you got to your 4th year, if you were in an honors program, you had maybe 15 or 16 students, so you really did get to meet and know the faculty. And 3 or 4 of them, one of them in particular, Dr. G.M. Story, who wrote over 20 years in collaboration with others, the Dictionary of Newfoundland English. And to let you know this is not some silly remark, Dr. G.M. Story was also one of the editorial advisors for the great Oxford English Dictionary, all 22 volumes of it. So here was a man of tremendous talent and a controlled enthusiasm, but impeccable taste and a knowledge of English literature that I haven't encountered since. I know I'm rambling on, but it's the nature of my mind. Then I went off to Oxford. I only spent a year there. I signed up for law, and I actually ended up going to all the English classes. Helen Gardner was the editor of Donne, the friend of T.S. Eliot, and Helen Gardner would be